Have you ever looked at your life or the world around you and just felt confused? You try to do the right thing, you pray, you keep your heart clean, and yet you're hit with a storm of suffering that makes no sense at all. It's a question that has echoed through the hearts of believers for centuries, a deep and painful puzzle that sometimes makes us question everything we thought we knew about the divine. This is the heart of what theologians call theodicy, the struggle to understand why a good and all-powerful God allows pain, especially in the lives of the righteous. It's a heavy topic, isn't it? Well, my friend, we're going to walk right into the heart of that storm today because the Bible gives us a front row seat to this very drama through the life of a man named Job. His story isn't just an ancient tale. It's a living blueprint for anyone who has ever cried out to God in the dark, wondering where he is. It's a story that challenges our neat little boxes about how faith and life are supposed to work, forcing us to confront the raw, untamed nature of divine sovereignty. Now, to really grasp the earthquake that's about to hit this man's life, you first have to understand the incredible heights from which he fell. The Bible introduces Job as a man from the land of Uz, and it doesn't mince words. It says he was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. Job 1:1. Think about that for a second. This wasn't just a good guy, this was the best of them, and his life reflected it, or so it seemed. He was fabulously wealthy, not in a flashy, arrogant way, but in a blessed, patriarchal sense. We're talking 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a massive household of servants. He was, as the scripture says, the greatest of all the people of the East. Job 1:3. His life was the perfect picture of what we often think a life of faith should look like. You honor God, and He blesses you with abundance. It all seems so straightforward, a clear equation of righteousness equals reward. It was a life that seemed to scream of God's favor, a testament to a life well lived, a perfect model of prosperity born from piety. But Job's righteousness went so much deeper than just avoiding sin and accumulating wealth. His was a proactive, deeply personal faith. Get this. After his sons and daughters would have their feasts, Job would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings for each of them. And why? He thought, it may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Job 1:5. Wow, this is next-level devotion. He wasn't just worried about their outward actions, he was interceding for the secret thoughts of their hearts. This reveals a man who had a profound understanding of God's holiness and His absolute sovereignty. He knew that God sees everything, and his reverence was so complete that he took it upon himself to stand in the gap for his children, just in case. This wasn't a man going through the motions of religion. This was a man in a deep, intimate and awe-filled relationship with his Creator, a man whose entire existence was oriented around honoring God in every conceivable way, even in the thoughts of others. His life was a constant act of worship, an ongoing conversation with the Almighty. This meticulous devotion, however, sets the stage for the central, terrifying question of the whole saga. Was Job's impeccable faith truly pure, or was it simply a very wise transaction? He was good, and God was good to him. It's a comfortable arrangement, one that makes sense to our human logic. If you do A, you get B. It's the spiritual equivalent of a vending machine. Insert righteousness, receive blessings. Many of us, if we're being honest, fall into this way of thinking. We believe that our good deeds should shield us from catastrophic suffering. We see our faith as a shield. But what happens when that shield is shattered? What happens when the formula breaks down? Is God's sovereignty just a system of reward and punishment, or is it something infinitely more complex and mysterious? Job's perfect life, unknowingly, was about to become the testing ground for this very in question, a cosmic experiment to determine if a human could love God for who He is, not just for what He gives. It's a question that cuts to the very core of what redemption truly means. So here he stands, our man Job, perfect, prosperous, and profoundly pious. He is the living embodiment of the covenant blessings promised in the Old Testament. From our earthly perspective, he has it all, and he deserves it all. He has built a fortress of righteousness around himself and his family, a life so secure it seems unshakable. But what we're about to witness is that the greatest tests of faith often come not in our moments of weakness, but in our moments of greatest strength. A different scene is being set in a place far beyond the land of Uz, a heavenly court where the nature of Job's faith, and indeed the nature of humanity's relationship with God, is about to be placed on trial. The stage is shifting from the dusty plains of the East to the very throne room of the cosmos, where a conversation is about to take place that will unleash a torrent of suffering and change everything forever. Just as we get comfortable with the image of Job's perfect life, the camera, so to speak, pulls away. It zooms out past the fields and the sky, all the way into the spiritual dimension, the very throne room of God. It's a place where the sons of God, which most scholars believe refers to angelic beings, come to present themselves before the Lord, Job 1:6. And wouldn't you know it, right there among them is a figure called Satan in Hebrew. Now, it's crucial we get this right. This isn't necessarily the horned devil of later theology. The name literally means the accuser or the adversary. Think of him less as a rebel king and more as a celestial prosecuting attorney, whose role is to roam the earth, observing humanity and challenging the authenticity of their righteousness. His presence demonstrates the immense scope of God's sovereignty. Even this cynical accuser operates within the divine council, subject to the Lord's authority. So, God points out Job, almost bragging about him. "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth?" Job 1:8. But the accuser, ever the skeptic, just scoffs. His reply cuts to the very heart of our story and the nature of faith itself. He essentially says, "Sure, he serves you. You've paid him well for it. Does Job fear God for nothing?" Job 1:9. He accuses Job's devotion of being nothing more than a transaction, a business deal. He argues that Job's piety is just a byproduct of the hedge of protection and blessing God has built around him. The implication is damning. Take away the stuff, take away the comfort, and you'll expose this perfect man's faith as a fraud. He's betting that human goodness is entirely conditional, a direct challenge to the idea that a soul can love God for God alone, even in the midst of profound suffering. And here, in this pivotal moment, we see the mystery of divine sovereignty unfold in a way that is both terrifying and profound. God, in his infinite wisdom and confidence in his servant, agrees to the test. He gives the accuser permission to strike, saying, "Behold, all that he has is in your hand. Only against him do not stretch out your hand." Job 1:12. God sets the boundary. This isn't a loss of control. It is a calculated allowance, a strategic move in a cosmic chess match we can barely comprehend. A terrible storm of suffering is about to be unleashed on an unsuspecting man, all to prove a point about the potential for human faith and to set the stage for a redemption deeper than anyone could imagine. The scene is set, the wager is made, and the action now shifts back to an earth blissfully unaware of the celestial drama that is about to ruin a righteous man's world. The accuser doesn't waste a moment. The permission granted in heaven becomes a tempest on earth with terrifying speed. The assault on Job's life is brutal, systematic, and overwhelming. Imagine Job going about his day when a breathless servant runs up, telling him the Sabians have stolen his oxen and donkeys and killed the servants. But before the weight of that news can even land, another messenger arrives. This one is even more horrifying. The fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants. Job 1:16. Do you see what's happening? This isn't just random tragedy. It feels targeted, supernatural. This cascade of suffering is designed to be so shocking, so complete, that no human faith could possibly withstand it. It's a full frontal assault meant to shatter his pious worldview in a matter of minutes. The storm of bad news isn't over. A third messenger appears, reporting that the Chaldeans have carried off all 3,000 of his camels, the backbone of his wealth. And then comes the final blow, the one that would break any parent's heart. Another servant, the lone survivor, stumbles in to tell him that while all his children were feasting at their oldest brother's house, a mighty wind from the wilderness struck the house and it collapsed, killing every single one of them. In a single afternoon, Job is stripped of his wealth, his livelihood, and his entire legacy. This is the raw, agonizing heart of theodicy. Not a philosophical question, but a lived reality. The God he had so carefully honored now seemed to be the very source of his desolation. Everything he thought he knew about divine sovereignty was just turned upside down in a whirlwind of death and destruction. And what is Job's response? Does he curse God, as the accuser predicted? No. What he does next is one of the most powerful displays of raw faith in the entire Bible. He gets up, tears his robe, and shaves his head, all profound acts of grief. But then he falls to the ground, not in despair, but in worship, and he speaks those immortal words, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Job 1:21. It's breathtaking. In his moment of absolute devastation, he affirms God's sovereignty and offers praise. He passed the first test with flying colors, but this saga of suffering is far from over. Up in the heavenly court, the accuser sees this incredible display not as a victory for faith, but as a sign that he simply hadn't gone far enough, setting the stage for a pain that would be far more personal. Back in the heavenly court, the accuser is forced to admit Job didn't sin with his lips, but he's not done. He doubles down with a new, more insidious accusation, skin for skin. All that a man has, he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face. Job 2:4-5. He's arguing that Job's faith is still selfishly motivated. A man will endure any external loss as long as his own body is safe. Once again, demonstrating his ultimate sovereignty, God allows the test to escalate, giving the accuser power over Job's physical body, but with one critical limit: his life must be spared. The battle for Job's soul is about to get intensely personal, moving from his circumstances to his very skin and bone, a new and terrifying level of suffering. The affliction is immediate and grotesque. Job is struck with loathsome sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. Job 2:7. Can you picture it? This once great man, now a wretched outcast, sits in a pile of ashes, a place for refuse and mourning, scraping his oozing sores with a piece of broken pottery. The physical agony is matched by his social degradation. It's in this moment of utter misery that his own wife, broken by grief, comes to him and utters those devastating words, "Do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die." Job 2:9. It's the voice of pure despair, the ultimate temptation to abandon a faith that seems to offer nothing but pain. Job's rebuke of her is firm, but it underscores his complete isolation. He is now truly alone in his trial. Just then, his three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, arrive. When they see him from a distance, he is so disfigured, they don't even recognize him. They weep, tear their robes, and sprinkle dust on their heads, and then they do something remarkable. They sit with him on the ground for 7 days and 7 nights, and no one speaks a word, for they saw that his suffering was very great. Job 2:13. This silent solidarity seems like a profound act of compassion, the calm before the storm. But really, it's the prelude to a brutal philosophical war. The silence is heavy with unspoken questions about theodicy, and when it finally breaks, it won't be with words of comfort, but with waves of accusation that will push Job to the very edge of his sanity. forcing him to defend his innocence against both his friends and his God. After 7 days of suffocating silence, it is Job who finally breaks. But the sound that emerges is not one of praise or submission. It is a howl of pure existential agony. He doesn't curse God. He curses the day he was born. In a torrent of dark poetry, he wishes his birthday would be erased from the calendar. That darkness would claim it, even calling on sorcerers to rouse up Leviathan, Job 3:8, to unleash primordial chaos itself, just to annihilate the moment of his creation. This is not a lapse in faith, my friend. It is the brutal language of profound suffering. It's a man pushed so far that non-existence feels like a mercy. This raw, desperate cry is the opening bell for the central debate on theodicy. What do you do when pain makes a mockery of your piety? His friend Eliphaz is the first to respond, and his words are like silk wrapped around a stone. He speaks with a tone of gentle wisdom, but his message is subtly cruel. He begins by asking, "If one ventures a word with you, will you be impatient?" Job 4.2, before launching into the core of his argument, "The innocent do not perish." He tells of a mysterious night vision where a spirit revealed to him that no mortal can be righteous before God. Then he uses a powerful analogy of a strong lion and his cubs, a clear metaphor for Job and his children being destroyed and scattered. The unspoken verdict hangs heavy in the air. This degree of suffering is impossible without some hidden, terrible sin. It's the first salvo of an attack on Job's integrity, a tidy, cruel explanation that protects a simplistic view of God's sovereignty. Job's reply is filled with the anguish of a man being betrayed by those he trusted. He listens to this pious explanation and responds with a brilliant metaphor of his own. He calls his friends deceitful as a brook, Job 6:15. In the winter, when you don't need water, the stream is overflowing. But in the blistering heat of summer, when the caravan is dying of thirst, the brook is bone dry. You came to me expecting to find a sinner getting his just deserts, he implies. But when you saw the horror of my reality, your comfort evaporated. His faith is now under a two-front assault. The inexplicable suffering he believes is from God, and the hollow accusatory words from his friends. The path to redemption is becoming darker and more confusing as human wisdom begins to fail him completely. The assault on Job's spirit intensifies. The next friend, Bildad, steps up to the plate. He's not a mystic like Eliphaz, he's a staunch traditionalist. His argument is blunt and based on a rigid formula of cause and effect. Can papyrus grow where there is no marsh? He asks. Can reeds flourish where there is no water? Job 8:11. For Bildad, the answer to the puzzle of theodicy is simple. If you are withering, it's because you've been cut off from the water of righteousness. He dismisses Job's cries of innocence, labeling him a hypocrite whose foundation is as flimsy as a spider's web. It's another attempt to defend God's sovereignty by condemning the one who is experiencing unimaginable suffering. Then comes Zophar, and if the other friends used scalpels, he uses a sledgehammer. He drops all pretense of sympathy and openly mocks Job's claims. He scoffs, "Oh, that God would speak and open his lips against you. Know then that God exacts of you less than your guilt deserves." Job 11:5-6. It's a staggering statement of religious arrogance. In Zophar's mind, Job's suffering isn't just deserved, it's a mercifully light sentence for his hidden greed and wickedness. This is the ultimate failure of man-made theology. It is a rigid, merciless system that sacrifices compassion for the sake of a tidy, predictable God. It is a faith that has answers for everything, but offers comfort for nothing. This relentless barrage of false piety pushes Job to a breaking point. He is utterly crushed, not just by his physical pain, but by the weight of these holy-sounding lies. Feeling hunted by God and condemned by man, his anguish finally erupts into a direct accusation against the Almighty. He cries out that God mocks at the calamity of the innocent. Job 9:23, and has become his unjust adversary, hunting him like a fierce lion. This is a terrifying and pivotal moment. Job's faith is now in a desperate wrestling match with God himself. He isn't rejecting God's existence or power, but he is boldly challenging his character. It is the cry of a man who feels his personal experience of suffering is in direct contradiction with the sovereignty of a just God, a cry that begins a painful but necessary journey toward a more authentic redemption. Just when the debate has devolved into a bitter stalemate, a new voice erupts from the sidelines. It's a young man named Elihu. He's been listening all this time, holding his tongue out of respect for his elders, but now he's boiling over with frustration. He's angry with the three friends for their pathetic attempts to answer Job, which only resulted in condemning him without cause. But he's also angry with Job, because in his desperate defense, Job began to justify himself rather than God. Elihu represents a fresh perspective, a different kind of faith that is tired of the old, broken arguments. He steps into the silence left by failed wisdom, promising a new take on God's sovereignty. Elihu offers the first truly new idea in this entire conversation about theodicy. He boldly declares that his friends have it all wrong. Suffering, he argues, isn't always punitive. It can also be corrective. He suggests that God uses pain as a divine teaching tool, like a loving father who disciplines a child to save them from a greater danger. He is disciplined with pain on his bed, Elihu says, so that God can bring back his soul from the pit. Job 33:19-28. This is a massive shift. Maybe, just maybe, God's purpose in allowing suffering isn't about paying for the past, but about protecting the future. It's a glimpse of a more complex and even compassionate purpose behind the pain. While Elihu's wisdom is still human and tinged with youthful arrogance, it serves a vital purpose. He introduces the revolutionary idea that suffering can be a pathway to a deeper redemption. He argues that affliction can be the very thing that humbles a person, opens their ears to God's voice, and saves them from the destructive pride that often comes with a righteous life. His long speeches effectively silence the harsh, simplistic theology of the three friends and exhaust the limits of human reasoning. In doing so, he unintentionally clears the stage and prepares the ground. He makes everyone, Job included, stop talking and finally look to the heavens, creating the perfect, quiet moment for the voice that truly matters to finally break through the storm. After all the flawed arguments and desperate cries, God finally answers. But he doesn't come in a gentle whisper or a comforting vision. He speaks out of a whirlwind, a terrifying, chaotic vortex of power, and he doesn't offer Job a single explanation for his suffering. Instead, he puts Job on trial. His first words are a thunderous challenge. "Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? I will question you, and you make it known to me." Job 38:2-3. This completely upends the situation. God isn't here to solve the problem of theodicy on Job's terms. He's here to reveal the profound, uncrossable gap between the mind of man and the infinite sovereignty of the Creator. What follows is a breathtaking virtual tour of creation, with God as the guide and Job as the humbled student. The questions come like waves, each one designed to show Job the limits of his understanding. "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding." Job 38:4. God asks him about shutting in the sea with doors, about commanding the morning, about the storehouses of the snow and hail, about the constellations in the heavens. This isn't a scolding, it's an education. God is reframing the debate. The answer to personal suffering doesn't begin with analyzing the pain, but with appreciating the sheer, mind-boggling scale and complexity of the one who is in control of everything. Then, God brings the lesson down from the cosmos to the wild animal kingdom. He asks Job if he's the one who provides food for the lions, who knows the calving season of the mountain goats, or who gave the wild donkey its freedom. He speaks of his intimate care for creatures that live completely outside the human sphere of influence, creatures that seem wild and purposeless to us. The unspoken point is overwhelming. If my sovereignty and providential care are this meticulous for the untamed parts of my world, do you not think I have a purpose for you? It's the beginning of a new kind of faith for Job, one built not on a system of reward, but on the awesome and trustworthy character of the Creator, a first step toward a redemption found in wonder, not answers. Just when Job is reeling from the tour of the cosmos, God zooms in on two of his most magnificent and terrifying creations, the Behemoth, a colossal land creature, and the Leviathan, the dreadful monster of the sea. These are not just animals, they are living symbols of a power in the world that is completely untamable by humankind. God describes them almost with delight, detailing their immense strength and fearsome nature. He is showing Job that the world he created is not entirely safe, orderly, and predictable. It contains forces of immense raw power that operate outside of human logic. This is a direct challenge to the neat little system of theodicy that Job and his friends have been trying to build. The description of Leviathan, in particular, is the terrifying climax of God's speech. This is the embodiment of primordial chaos. God asks Job, "Can you draw out Leviathan with a fishhook?" Job 41.1. He describes its back as rows of shields, its sneezes flashing forth light, its heart as hard as a millstone. He says that when it raises itself up, even the mighty are afraid. The message is clear. There is a dimension of reality, a level of disorder and danger in this world that you, Job, cannot possibly comprehend, let alone control. Your neat formulas about suffering and justice are woefully inadequate for a universe that contains a creature like this. And here is the knockout punch. After describing this uncontrollable monster, God poses the ultimate question: who then is he that can stand before me? Job 41:10. The implication is breathtaking. If you are terrified by this creature and you cannot even begin to master it, how could you possibly presume to understand or judge me, the one who created it and takes it on a walk? God's sovereignty is not just about managing the orderly parts of life, it's about having dominion over the chaos itself. This is the moment that shatters Job's paradigm. True faith, he is beginning to see, is not about having the answers to suffering, but about trusting the awesome, untamable God who is sovereign even over the Leviathan. This is the gateway to his redemption. The voice from the whirlwind accomplishes what no human argument ever could. It doesn't answer Job's questions. It transforms the man asking them. Humbled and in awe, Job finally speaks, and his words are no longer a demand for justice, but a whisper of surrender. "I know that you can do all things. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes." Job 42:2, 5-6. This is the breakthrough. His old faith, based on understanding, has died. A new faith, based on a personal, awesome encounter with God, is born. He didn't get the explanation he wanted for his suffering, but he got something infinitely better. He got God himself. What happens next is a stunning display of God's sovereignty and grace. God turns to Eliphaz and the other two friends, and he rebukes them harshly, saying, "You have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has." Job 42:7. Imagine that. God validates Job's raw, messy, questioning struggle over the friend's neat, pious, and utterly wrong theology. He then restores Job's life, giving him double the wealth he had before, a new family, and a long life. This isn't a simple reward or a payment for his pain. It is a powerful illustration that the same God who allows the storm is also the God of abundant, gracious restoration. The chapter of suffering closes, and a new one of blessing begins. But the story's deepest meaning points beyond Job's restoration. The ultimate answer to the problem of theodicy wasn't found in the whirlwind. It was found centuries later on a cross. Job, the innocent man who suffered, is a powerful foreshadowing of Jesus Christ, the perfectly innocent one who endured the ultimate suffering for the redemption of all. The final answer to why good people suffer is not a philosophical explanation. It's a person. It's God Himself entering our pain in the form of His Son. Job's saga teaches us that true, resilient faith is the ability to trust the heart of God even when we can't see the plan of God, knowing that the Lord of the whirlwind is also the Lord of our salvation. So in the end, God's answer to our deepest pain isn't an explanation, it's a revelation of who He is. The goal isn't to understand the reason for the storm, but to meet the God who commands it. After hearing this, has your own perspective on suffering shifted? Let me know in the comments below. Which part of Job's story impacted you the most? Your testimony could be the very thing someone else needs to read to hold on to their faith today. If this message has strengthened your spirit, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss these deep dives into God's Word. And don't leave just yet. The video you see on the screen right now will take you even deeper into understanding God's ultimate purpose in our trials. Click on it now and let's continue the journey together.